Imagine retiring with $1 million in your investment account. For decades, you've worked toward that number. You've saved, you've invested, you've avoided unnecessary debt. And finally, you've crossed the $1 million mark. It sounds like you've made it. But here's the uncomfortable question. Is $1 million actually enough to retire? For some people, absolutely. For others, it may not even come close. And the difference isn't necessarily how much money you have. It's how much money you need. The idea that $1 million is the magic retirement number has become deeply embedded in financial culture. But retirement doesn't happen inside a spreadsheet. It happens in the real world. Your housing costs can change. Healthcare expenses can rise. Inflation can quietly reduce your purchasing power. Taxes can take a larger bite than expected. And perhaps most importantly, retirement could last 20, 30, or even 40 years. So today, we're going to break down the $1 million retirement myth and look at what actually determines whether your savings are enough. If you want to master the rules of financial freedom and navigate your way out of the 9-to-5 grind, consider subscribing to the Retirement Compass. We chart the path so you can enjoy the destination. The first problem: $1 million is not $1 million everywhere. Let's start with something many retirement discussions overlook. Where you retire matters enormously. $1 million can provide a completely different lifestyle depending on the country, city, and even neighborhood where you live. Consider two retirees. The first spends retirement in an expensive major city. They pay high rent or property taxes, expensive insurance, costly transportation, and higher everyday prices. The second retiree lives in a smaller city or a lower-cost country. Their housing costs are lower. Food may cost less. Transportation may be cheaper. And certain services may represent a fraction of what they would cost in a high-income country. Both retirees have exactly $1 million. But their financial situations are completely different. This is why asking, is $1 million enough to retire, is actually the wrong question. A better question is, enough for what lifestyle, in what location, and for how long? The second problem: $1 million has to last. Now let's assume you retire with $1 million invested. Suppose you withdraw 4% during your first year of retirement. That's $40,000. At first glance, that might sound reasonable, but retirement isn't 1 year. If you're 65, you could potentially spend several decades in retirement. And if you retire earlier, your portfolio may need to support you for even longer. The challenge is that your investment returns won't arrive in a perfectly predictable line. Some years may be excellent, other years may be terrible. Imagine retiring just before a major market downturn. You begin withdrawing money while your portfolio is falling. This creates what financial planners call sequence of returns risk. The order in which investment returns occur can matter almost as much as the average return over the long term. Two retirees can have the same portfolio, the same average investment return, and the same withdrawal rate. But if one experiences major losses during the first few years of retirement, their outcome can be dramatically different. That's why simply dividing $1 million by your annual spending doesn't tell the whole story. Inflation is the silent retirement killer. $1 million today is not going to have the same purchasing power 20 or 30 years from now. Inflation gradually increases the cost of goods and services. Imagine you retire with a comfortable annual budget. You can afford your housing, your groceries, your transportation, your health care, your hobbies. Everything looks manageable. But over the following decades, those same expenses become more expensive. If your income doesn't keep pace with inflation, your lifestyle gradually becomes less comfortable. This is particularly important for younger retirees. Someone retiring at 45 could potentially spend 50 years managing their retirement assets. That's an entirely different challenge from someone retiring at 70. The longer your retirement lasts, the more important inflation becomes, and healthcare deserves special attention. Healthcare can change the entire equation for many retirees. Healthcare is one of the biggest unknowns. Even countries with relatively affordable healthcare can have significant costs for private insurance, medications, dental care, specialist treatment, or long-term care. And if you're considering retiring abroad, you also need to understand how the local healthcare system works. Some countries offer excellent private healthcare at relatively low costs. Others may require retirees to maintain private insurance or demonstrate financial resources as part of residency requirements. Then there's long-term care. You may remain healthy for decades, but nobody can guarantee that. A prolonged period of assisted living, home care, or specialized medical treatment can dramatically increase retirement expenses. That's why building a retirement plan around a single number can be dangerous. Now let's talk about housing. Housing can make or break a retirement budget. If you own a home outright in a relatively affordable location, your monthly expenses may be significantly lower. But if you're renting in an expensive city, your retirement portfolio has to work much harder. Consider a retiree spending $2,000 a month on housing. That's $24,000 every year. Over a decade, that's $240,000 before considering inflation. And that's just housing. This is why retirees often discover that their location is one of the most powerful financial decisions they can make. Moving from a high-cost area to a lower-cost region doesn't necessarily mean sacrificing quality of life. In some cases, it can actually increase it. You may spend less on housing while having more money available for travel, restaurants, hobbies, and experiences. The global retirement advantage this is where retirement becomes particularly interesting for people willing to think beyond their home country. You don't necessarily have to retire where you spent your entire working life. Some retirees choose countries where their retirement income provides greater purchasing power. For example, a retiree receiving a fixed monthly income may find that the same amount of money provides a significantly different lifestyle in different parts of the world. But this doesn't mean you should simply search for the cheapest country. Cheap isn't automatically better. You need to consider healthcare quality, safety, infrastructure, political stability, residency rules, taxation, climate, transportation, language, and proximity to family. The goal isn't to find the cheapest place on earth. It's to find the best balance between cost and quality of life. Planning for the future can be overwhelming, but you don't have to navigate it alone. If you're finding value in this breakdown so far, hit the like button. It helps this compass reach more people looking for financial direction. So how much do you actually need? Instead of starting with a target like $1 million, start with your annual spending. Let's say you expect to spend $60,000 per year in retirement. That's your starting point. Now consider your guaranteed income. Maybe you receive a pension. Perhaps you qualify for government retirement benefits. Maybe you have rental income, or you have another reliable source of income. Suppose those sources provide $20,000 per year. Now your portfolio doesn't necessarily need to provide the entire $60,000. It needs to cover the remaining $40,000. That's a dramatically different calculation. This is one of the biggest mistakes people make when thinking about retirement. They focus on the size of their portfolio instead of the relationship between assets, income, and spending. A retiree with $700,000 and relatively low expenses may be more financially secure than someone with $1 million and an extremely expensive lifestyle. The retirement number is personal. Your retirement number should reflect your personal circumstances. Think about these 5 questions. First, how much will I spend every year? Not what you hope to spend. What will you realistically spend? Look at housing, food, transportation, healthcare, insurance, travel, entertainment, taxes, and unexpected expenses. Second, how much guaranteed income will I have? This could include pensions, government benefits, annuities, rental income, or other reliable sources. Third, how long might my retirement last? Retiring at 50 is fundamentally different from retiring at 70. Fourth, where will I live? Your location can dramatically affect your required portfolio. And fifth, what happens if things go wrong? What if markets fall? What if inflation rises? What if healthcare costs increase? What if you live longer than expected? A strong retirement plan doesn't assume everything goes perfectly. It prepares for uncertainty. The biggest myth of all, perhaps the biggest retirement myth, isn't that $1 million is enough. It's the idea that there is one universal number that guarantees financial security. There isn't $1 million can be insufficient for one retiree and more than enough for another. The difference comes down to the relationship between your money and your lifestyle. Imagine someone with $1 million who spends $100,000 every year. Their portfolio faces a very different challenge from someone who spends $35,000 annually. Same portfolio, completely different retirement. That's why chasing a bigger number without understanding your spending can create a false sense of security. You could spend years trying to reach $2 million when changing your housing costs or lifestyle could have a much bigger impact on your retirement security. What you should do instead, if $1 million isn't the magic number, what should you do? Start with your lifestyle. Calculate your expected annual retirement expenses. Then subtract reliable income. The remaining amount is what your investments need to support. Next, build several scenarios. Don't create only a perfect case retirement plan. Create a conservative scenario. What happens if your investments perform poorly during the first few years? What happens if inflation stays higher than expected? What happens if healthcare costs increase? What happens if you live 10 years longer than expected? And if you're considering international retirement, create another scenario based on your potential destination. Compare housing, healthcare, tax, transportation, food, insurance, residency costs, and your ability to return home when necessary. You may discover something surprising. Your retirement destination could matter almost as much as the size of your portfolio. The bottom line, is $1 million enough to retire? It can be, but it isn't automatically enough. For some retirees, $1 million could provide decades of financial security. For others, especially those living in expensive locations with high annual spending, it may disappear much faster than expected. The important lesson isn't to fear retirement. It's to stop thinking about retirement as a single number. Your real retirement number is a combination of your spending, income, investments, location, healthcare needs, taxes, and time horizon. And if you're willing to make thoughtful decisions about those variables, you may discover that you don't need as much money as you once believed, or you may discover that you need more. Either way, knowing the truth is far better than relying on a popular financial myth. Because retirement isn't about reaching an impressive number on a bank statement. It's about creating a financial system that can support the life you actually want to live. And that is the real measure of retirement readiness. If this video helped you rethink what retirement really costs, subscribe to the Retirement Compass for more practical strategies on financial independence, retirement planning, and building a life where your money works for you. Your retirement destination matters, but knowing how to navigate there matters even more.